comes great responsibility.
Thanks, Nathan. So hello, welcome everyone to the InstructLab CLI community meeting. Today we have a couple of things on the agenda, one of which is a cool demo from Mark about some SigStore commands he added to InstructLab. Other than that, we have some, release stuff we want to talk about. We have a huge milestone coming up that has some open issues on it, and then if we have time, we will go over the board. I don't know who added Merlinite issue, but I'm excited to hear what that's about. So Mark, if you want to, I guess you can take over screen sharing actually, which might be a whole other problem in and of itself.
Yeah, I can't at the moment. So Nathan or Charlie, if you guys could grant me access, I would be happy to screen share, but I can't at the moment.
Add as co-host. There you go. You should have it now. And then I'll start sharing again once you're done with your demo, if that works.
Works for me. I'm just making sure my terminal is big enough so everybody can see. Share. Can people see that? All right.
We see your Chrome. Yeah, now we see terminal.
Yep.
Cool.
There it is.
All right, demo time. So I have been working the past little bit on adding SigStore signing and verification to InstructLab. The way that looks is first iLab sign. We'll do iLab sign help. This is pretty simple. You can provide a model path and a bundle path. So this is the result of signing will be put in what's called a SigStore bundle, and that'll be saved alongside. It defaults to the default Merlinite model, and the bundle path will just kind of echo that file path. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do iLab sign staging, and the default should take care of it. It'll just sign the default Merlinite model. What's going to happen for people who are not familiar with SigStore is it's going to kick me over to a web browser where I can log in with an identity provider. And this identity provider will allow me to sign the model with the email that is associated with this identity provider. I'm just going to do GitHub for now. Now this authentication is successful. We go back to our terminal, and the thing has been signed. So if we go actually to our models directory, so if you see models, you'll see that not only do I have my the GGUF model, there's also a .sigstore.json file. And if we can actually look at that, so cat Merlinite that, and then I'll pipe that to JQ. And this is the signature file. So you can see that there's a certificate, there's a signature, there's a bunch of information here. It's all base64 encoded, so we can't really see a whole lot useful right now, but it's there, and it can be used to verify. And that's the other side of what I've written. So that's iLab verify, and we'll take a look at help for that. You have the option to again put in a model path and a bundle path. Again, by default, it'll verify the same parallel file that was created in your directory. And you also have the option to provide identity and an issuer. So this basically allows you to determine that the model was signed with a particular identity, which again was attested by the fact that we signed in the browser. So I'm going to do that. Again, do the staging instance of SigStore. I'm going to do identity. My GitHub email is markbest@vue.edu. So if I do that, whoops. Oh, that's strange. How did that happen?
You're in the wrong directory. You have to cd.
Oh yeah, right. Of course. Thank you, Charlie. There you go. So SigStore pass verification. And you'll see that if I try and verify with a different identity, let's say I just do .com instead of .edu, verification will fail. And you'll see that the reason is that the identity they provided doesn't match what the thing was actually signed with, which was markbest.vue.edu. So that's the basics. There are two commands in right now. I have some ideas for how we could expand on this. This is, as it is pretty basic. The idea is, you could upload this bundle file maybe alongside your model, and then when you download it later on, when another user downloads it later on, they can verify that it came from your particular identity. We could integrate it a little bit further. My thought is a good first step for that would be to integrate into the download command. So if, for example, in a Hugging Face repository, there is a parallel sigstore.json file like we saw, we could also download that and verify it as part of the download step, and have that verification step in there too. I also have some other ideas for how it could be integrated with the backend, for example. So yeah, that's it. Thank you. Any questions?
Yeah, this is super cool. I was wondering about, does this support like chunking? If so, do you use like 3 or the SHA P256 that you're using upstream? And also, like, is there any ability to hook in identity / like OIDC issuers on the signing?
For the second one, not at the moment. That's definitely something I want to add. Also, the ability to add so right now it's using the public good sigstore instance and the staging instance. But I'd like to add the ability to add custom sigstore instances, especially alongside Trusted Artifact Signer, since that's another product that we could have some synergy with there. Chunking, I think it does use incremental signing, so it doesn't load the entire model into memory to sign it. It signs the hash of it. I don't know if that's what you were wondering, but it should be relatively memory efficient. I have Tiran, I forget his name, Christian, I think. He provides some good advice for how to make that work better in my pull request. So that was very helpful. Any other questions? I'm sharing my screen. I can't really see. Maybe I should just
Mark and then Martin.
Yeah, I just had a question. So who would usually sign a model? I guess it makes sense if you download one and it's signed, you keep that.
Yeah, well, so the idea is, since InstructLab is very much it's designed towards contributors and people who are going to be training new models. The thought is that users, when they're done training a model and they want to publish it for other people to consume, they could sign it, and then when people consume it, they could then verify that it was trained by a particular person, right?
Is it fair to say the signer would be the creator of the model, or is that too simplistic? Is it more than that?
I mean, this is also something I'm interested in, because I'm trying to figure out if there are ways we can extend the things that are signed, because right now it's just the single model. But I think it would also be cool if we could additionally sign like the taxonomy that was that was used to train it, so that you could say this model was, when you verify, you say this model is not only provided by this identity, but it was trained on this specific set of taxonomy. But that's a tangent. To answer your question, it would be the person that trained it in this scenario. So it would, like, the end user who runs a train pipeline on their laptop or wherever InstructLab is. Once that's done, the artifact that the producer says at the end of that process would then get signed with iLab sign or equivalent, because I know the other thing is Charlie is redesigning the whole CLI, so it'll probably become a different command relatively soon. I hope that was a satisfactory answer. Marty, I guess?
Yeah, Mark, thanks very much. I like this a lot. I'm just wondering, and I think you're ahead of your game with this, as in, like, you might be ahead of the curve here, because from what I've seen so far, but I don't know everything about AI, is I haven't seen a lot of provenance around models. So I think the idea here that you want to extend this, first of all with the model, to do it from the model point of view, and maybe going forward, Nathan and maybe Khalid and all, they might know that if we're going to publish models going forward, maybe we'll sign them. So maybe we will be the first group that will put models up there with signatures. And then, as you say, having it built into the download is fantastic, that concept. Yeah. But I also like the idea that you're not just stopping on the model, you're bringing it to the taxonomy as well. And the STG that is probably more the STG that's generated. You're probably going to put the sigstore on, or put the verification on. So yeah. I like it a lot, actually. I think it's a really good idea. So yeah, let's see where we go on it, and maybe we're going to push the envelope a bit on this.
Yeah,
in
I'm
relation
excited.
to it. So
I've been really passionate about provenance with AI for a while, even in my previous job, which had nothing to do with AI. I was just like, provenance is a really powerful tool.
yeah, okay, thanks, mate.
Yeah. Who had their hands up first, Khalid or Ali?
I guess I'm next in the queue.
All right, Khalid, go ahead.
So I'm sorry if I missed this, but I was wondering, is there scope for, and would we prefer to be able to like sign it as an organization instead of as a person? To say
We
like
could-
this is like the officially like InstructLab sign.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's a very good place to start, because then you know that you're training on a, on our base model instead of a different base model, right? The way I did it right now is we call it attended signing. So you would sign it with the identity where you log in the browser. There are other workflows, especially on GitHub, where you can do unattended signing, and that's like more tied to a project more than a single identity. I'm not sure how that'll work yet, especially with InstructLab, but I have ideas around that I want to talk to people about. So, but yeah, we definitely have the base model be signed by a representative of InstructLab and have that verification step be part of the training pipeline or something.
Yeah, definitely. I say this because like whether it goes in the training or in how we in where we publish, like we can, I mean, we have an email domain, I guess, that we're like showing some addresses towards. So we
I mean, like
use that.
as a starting point, we could just have Merlinite be signed by an InstructLab.ai address, and that should be like a really good starting step for verification at the moment.
Okay, awesome, thanks.
Yeah, Ali, I think you had your hand up next.
Yeah. Maybe this is a simple question. Is it possible for it to sign more than one file, like sign everything in a directory? So I know the full precision models are usually downloaded as multiple safe sensor files, and even when you download like the full precision model from Hugging Face, you're not just getting the GGUFI or getting a whole bundle of stuff.
I think so. If nothing else, we can sign all the files individually and have their signatures like put together in aggregate. But I'm pretty sure it should be possible to do. That's one of the things I'm working on, learning about for like signing a taxonomy was. So yeah, thank you, Gregory.
Yeah, I'm thinking way farther ahead. It might even be cool in a multi-phase training to like sign all the checkpoints in the middle of training.
Oh, definitely, yeah. Yeah, we're already. That's already how it's like in the software signing world. That's already how it's done. Like you sign every single step of the build process, for example, in a container, right?
Yeah.
So we could definitely extend the same kind of concept to an AI training pipeline. Yeah, good question. JD, pick your last hand up.
Thanks, Mark. Yeah, very cool demo. Thanks for showing that. I don't know anything about this space personally, so this might even be a stupid question, but I saw that like when you sign a model, like it creates like an external file which has like the things that you verify against. Kind of wondering if what's actually stopping someone from taking a model that was signed by someone else, taking out the signature stuff and re-uploading it and trying to pass it off as their own. I was kind of wondering, like, and like further, like as a other thought, maybe is it actually possible at some point to integrate the signature into the model itself so that it's harder to kind of separate out?
Yeah, well, so to your first point, definitely possible. There are definitely mechanisms to protect against that in the software signing world. I don't know a huge amount about them just yet, but we could definitely. Oh, Gregory. Go ahead.
I can field this one. So for example, like registry.redhat.io has enforcement policies on what you can do with signatures. For example, if I downloaded a UVI image that was published to registry and I tried to clean the signature there using cosign or some other tool, it wouldn't allow you to do that, nor would it allow you to re-sign it, except to add on like new layers beyond that in the context that you're creating like a new image. So the answer is yes, but they don't, like the protections around that don't appear here at the signing stage.
Yeah. And to extend upon your second point, which is sort of related, if we wanted to integrate into a single file, that is definitely possible. A good example is I forget what it's called, the SPDX, not SPDX, sorry. I forgot the name. But basically, there are examples of files that are like self-signed, and that it's one file that contains a signature as part of like the file, and then the payload's like a different part of the file, so you can like use the signature that's included in the file to verify the file itself. That is possible. It would require some kind of innovation in like the file format. So I don't know if it would require like a new version of GGUF, for example, or if we could extend GGUF to have signatures included inside it. But in any case, it would require some kind of standardization on that front. So that's maybe a longer term goal, but it would be cool. I think it would be a very good thing to have.
Yeah. Okay. Sounds good. That makes a lot of sense. I think also there's probably a lot of development that's going to happen in how like we store models, like with actual model registries and stuff coming up. So there's definitely, I think, room for like what Gregory was explaining with like base images having signatures baked in, and then you build on top of that. I can definitely see it going in sort of that direction. But yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Thanks.
Yeah, I mean, for now, like, for the proof of concept that I'm working on for here and going forward, I was thinking I would just put that 6-store bundle as part of the Hugging Face upload, and that'd probably work. But you'd probably want some kind of special handling eventually to make sure that you mitigate the kind of attacks that Gregory was talking about.
Yeah, no, I also just want to take a second and echo what Martin said about we're appreciating the forward thinking aspect on this. The fact that we're still trying to come to grips with AI and how quickly it moves, but like definitely like the provenance and signing aspect of it is going to be here before we even know it. Like pretty soon there's going to be concerns around validity of models and such. So it's really good to think about that in this direction and try to get a head start on that. So awesome stuff.
Yeah. Thank you, JD. Mark.
Yeah, we are doing a lot of work around a bill of materials for AI, machine learning bill of materials, working with Cyclone DX. That's becoming an ECMA standard. That's not signing, but it's just a standard way of where do you put signatures and transparency and data sets and provenance and all that stuff. So I think that's probably coming too, but it's nice to have a legit like signed file be part of all that for sure.
Yeah, I agree. All right. Well, thank you. This was a lot of fun.
Cool. Thanks, Mark. Yeah, I just want to say I totally agree with the sentiment, because like I know that with some of the redesign stuff, which you vaguely mentioned, we're kind of thinking about models in a more like real way. Like I kind of feel like we kind of hide them away currently, where it's like, oh, your models directory, you don't need to look at that. But we're kind of exposing like the models to the users to like list them and get information about them and stuff like that. So having like security measures around models is super important. So that's really cool. Thanks. I will attempt to share my screen again. See what happens here. Application window. You should be seeing a Google Doc.
Yep.
Cool. Is this the right one?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, the right
one. So after that, I see some people added something else. I'm assuming this is you, Nathan, with the CLI Maintainer nominations, or somebody. Do we want to talk about those really quick?
Yeah, just very briefly. We won't take up much time with it, but so as per the sort of contributor roles document that's laid out in the community repo for this organization, Russell Bryant and I have co-sponsored 2 nominations for additions to the CLI Maintainers team. You can read more about the nomination process and the responsibilities of the team in the linked document at the top there. But yeah, basically we're nominating two folks. It's Sebastian Hahn and Christian Teams. Both have been very proactive in engaging with the community, reviewing pull requests, providing technical assistance and guidance in various forms and fashions. Christian's done a lot for the Python packaging side of things. Sebastian's done a lot for the architecture of the project, reviewing PRs. There's more details about sort of Russell and mine's reasoning behind these nominations, but so the way this basically works, as laid out in that governance document, is that existing CLI maintainers are to vote on this. We've asked that you just add a thumbs up, kind of like Charlie just did there, to the issue if you're in favor of the nomination. Do you have any concerns? Russell's asked you reach out to him directly about that. If these nominations were to go through, these two gentlemen would be added to our GitHub team, and they would be given the same sort of permissions that the existing CLI maintainers team have. So if you're a CLI maintainer currently, please vote or contact Russell if you're not in favor, if you have any concerns, anything like that. That will, of course, be kept private. If you're not a CLI maintainer, we still appreciate any feedback you might have. Feel free to comment on the issue. This is meant to be an open, sort of transparent process. This is the sort of first time we've actually gone through with this process. So like the governance doc has been around, but we haven't actually done any nominations before. These are our first two. We'll be iterating on this process, but right now we're just sort of going with the way that I've had it described. And I'm happy to answer any questions about this.
Thank you, Nathan. Appreciate bringing that up, because it looks like as you brought it up, it's getting more thumbs up, because I think some of us forgot to add our
no problem at all. No, I wanted to bring it up in this forum before we made any decisions anyway, so that we could sort of expose this to more folks in the community.
Yeah. Cool. Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Next is the security fix that I think Ali has been working on primarily. So if you want to speak to it more, you can. But basically, it's just a Llama CPP bump that finally merged. I know Ali worked a lot on this, so thank you a lot for getting this in. I know it caused kind of a lot of weird dependency problems in InstructLab, but I'm glad that we figured it out. If you want to speak to it more now, you can. Or if not, that's okay too.
There's going to be a follow-up issue for one of the errors that was being thrown that I caught. I'll go ahead and create that today. But I think besides that, Nathan's going to cut a release with this in there. Is that going to happen, Nathan? Or did that already happen?
There's just one hitch with it. So actually, I went ahead and opened up the backport PR, but if you can actually open that up, Charlie, it's at the bottom there. There are a couple of merge conflicts. I don't know how like in depth these merge conflicts are. So we would have to get those fixed before we can cut the release, because we have to get those merged into the 0.15 branch. Are you able to open up the changes there, Charlie, real quick? Just to see. I'm not sure. I'm not sure exactly. I opened this up via Mergify.
Yeah, I mean, like,
to dive in.
Sometimes when this would happen, like back when I worked on OpenShift about a month ago, you sometimes just need to open it manually if there's too many merge conflicts, which isn't.
You know what? The merge conflicts are actually because we added that linting. Like, it's a result of the linter.
Okay.
I think it's just one of those things where either one of us just needs to go in there and fix it really quick. It's a 4-line fix. I can go ahead and do that. If not, Nathan, let me know. But it's more linting than the actual PR.
If you wouldn't mind doing that, I appreciate it. Just because I don't want to like break something that was in your original change and then like screw up the backport. But like I can sort of push that through once that's done, and I can draft the release. So I can take care of that.
Okay,
if that's all right. If that's all right, Ollie.
Yeah. There was one other thing I was hoping to get somebody from the community to help with. So the reason we had pinned our old Llama CPP versions to such an old one was because that there was reportedly issues of there's reportedly people having issues building M3 Max, building iLab with M3 Max. Gosh, a month or two ago, probably even 2 months ago now, because that's how long we had that release pin for. Is there anyone that could go ahead and just give iLab a quick try on an M3 Mac
I can.
if they haven't already in a couple days?
Yeah, I can do that. And I was doing that with this PR already.
Oh, you know, if you were doing it with the PR, then I'm sure it's fine.
Yeah, it's fine.
Thank you, Mark.
Anything else, Ollie, or you think that's
no, that's it. Nathan, I'll keep in touch with you on the next steps for that.
one thing I will say is I don't know if this would have impacted this, but going forward, if we are knowing that we're doing a backport, it might be helpful to do a rebase before merging, because that might have, I don't know if that would have revealed any conflicts or resolved them before,
No.
but that might be helpful.
No, the issue here was that we added linting in chat.py after that release was cut.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Cool.
One thing we could do, Ollie, is we could backport that PR and then rebase this backport PR on top of that, possibly. Or we can just fix the conflicts manually. What do you think?
I think it's fine to just fix the conflict manually. It's just
Yeah,
4
that sounds
lines.
good. Yeah, then this release is going to be followed pretty quickly by 0.16.0. So I think that's I say I agree. Yeah.
Is this going to be the first one that's on test PyPy, or is this going to be on full PyPy?
This should be on full PyPy. The first one that we thought was going to be on full PyPy was 0.15.0, but there was just a small bug with the automation for that. So Christian fixed that. We're anticipating that this one will publish successfully based on the test.pypy action that we had tested that with. So once that's complete, basically, if you pip install InstructLab, it will install 0.15.1. And when we bump to 0.16.0, then it should then bump that version as well. But then you will be able to pip install InstructLab directly instead of having to do this whole GitHub pip installation. So that'll actually be really nice. I'm excited.
Cool. If there's nothing else on this one, then we can look at the milestone. I just wanted to bring this up that we have a kind of what Nathan was talking about, a big release scheduled sometime soon, which is May 30th. It's only 34% complete. I mean, I know there's been a lot going on with other priorities on the InstructLab team, but a lot of these have PRs open, or at least a pretty significant chunk of the ones that are here have PRs open, which is a good sign. Not super worried. But if anyone, I'm not going to go over these in depth because we're going to go over the board as well. Unless people think that this would be a better activity than going over the board. I'm also okay with that if we'd rather just go over the release stuff rather than the entire board. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, if we don't have anything urgent to discuss, then I think the milestone of the board makes sense just for the rest of our time.
Okay, so milestone rather than board. Okay.
Yeah, just because it's a bit more urgent.
Yeah.
And
Cool.
there should be less items here.
Yep. So in that case, I'll just start going over this unless there was something else. Before I go over that, actually, we should probably do the other two things that are the open comments and the Merlinite issue. Does anyone have anything they want to talk about before we go over some grooming stuff? Just because I know that will take a while and it'll probably be the rest of the meeting. Any other things people want to bring up?
Is the Merlinite issue something that
Yeah, I don't know what that is.
I put this down. I can speak to this. So I just wanted to get some feedback from you guys if you had seen any issues with Merlinite as of 2 days ago. Me and the rest of the bot team were trying to hit the end point, and it seemed like all of a sudden Merlinite hit a wall and Granite soared in terms of performance. So we've seen a complete reversal in terms of those. And then we also had an incident of it escaping the guardrails yesterday. So we're just trying to figure out what's going on. We thought, you guys as CLI maintainers might have had some experience similar to this and just kind of see if what we were looking at was a hallucination or if there were more examples of something like this.
Well, we haven't published a new model in a while, so the one that's being used in the time frame you're talking about is the same model. So it's nothing with the model that's changed. I mean, off the top of my head, there hasn't been a huge amount of code that's changed either the chat or server templates. I know like we changed those before Red Hat Summit, but nothing I can think of. I'm hearing some hands go up, so whoever, if someone else has a more a comment that would make more sense here, feel free to go ahead.
Oh yeah, I was going to ask. So Greg, the models that you're getting at the Merlite model, are you pulling the latest one from the InstructLab organization on Hugging Face, or is the model that
No,
bot
this
is
is
using?
this is the
Okay.
BAM hosted model.
The BAM hosted model. Okay.
Yeah.
So I do not know a lot about BAM, so I will cede to JD.
Yeah, I was gonna ask the same thing. I heard that you were hitting an endpoint. I'm guessing this may have more to do with what the BAM service is serving. It's also possible they may, if it's just an inference question, I think sometimes changing the runtime that the model is being served through, I've heard can also make a difference towards what kind of output is produced by the model. Because at least in my personal, like, even when you're just working locally, if you try to serve a model that doesn't fit entirely into memory, for example, you get gibberish output because it's not loading the whole thing into memory. So there's so it sounds like if you're seeing a discrepancy in output quality, there's a non-zero chance it has something to do with how the model is being hosted and something changed at that end. Because like Charlie said, we haven't put out a new model in a hot second.
Yeah, I'm curious because again, like I said, I don't know a lot about BAM, but I'm curious. Greg, maybe we can follow up with some folks from the BAM team. I can start a conversation around that and see if see if we can get to the bottom of this, because escaping the guardrails is definitely something that warrants some investigation there.
Yeah, it was surprisingly bad. We do
Yeah,
have a series of DMs. If you're interested / a stakeholder of this, Nathan, I'm happy to add you into that channel.
There's really not a lot I can do directly, so I'd probably actually prefer not. I would rather
Okay.
kind of get this into I can start a conversation in an appropriate forum, but I'll make sure that I'll tag you in it, Greg, and if there's other stakeholders that are
Yeah.
looking at this, we can get them involved as
I
well.
just want to echo that. I do think that all of these should be happening in as large of a channel as possible, because you're bound to get the best response rather than pulling us all into separate DMs. That's just my suggestion, because like a lot of us have different areas of expertise in the project, so it makes the most sense to do that. But yeah, thanks for bringing that up. I mean, off the top of my head, the only time I've ever seen it hallucinate that bad is when the chat template was wrong. But it could also be a memory problem. JD's probably right. That's probably what it is. It's probably the thing hosting it rather than a model problem. Cool.
Gotcha. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, I mean, also the template thing that you mentioned, it could be that the template is also provided to the model at the time of serving, I think. So it could be that as well. It could be any number of things, but it seems definitely something that we should follow up with whoever is hosting the model. Rather than
I mean, yeah, if BAM is hosting it using VLLM, that would change a lot of stuff, because I know that VLLM has a way to pass in a custom chat template, which they could be doing, or someone could have messed with that. I don't know, just throwing things out there.
They are, and they did tell me that they changed the VLLM runtime to match Granite. That being said, we then asked them to revert that change, and we still saw that same performance. So we're not sure if A, they said they changed it and they didn't change it, B, if it's something else entirely, or, I guess there's no C in this case. But yeah, we're still trying to figure out what really has changed.
Cool. Well, thanks for letting us know. And yeah, just ping us wherever. And I think, Nathan, if you want to start the conversation, that probably would be best.
I'll do that. Yeah.
Yeah. Also, if you don't mind just adding a bit more context on this issue to the doc itself, because like we know that because we spoke about it, but if we could summarize that in the doc, that would be good.
Sounds good.
Cool. Any other open comments before I go over the milestone? take silence as no. Cool. All right. Going over this milestone. So a lot of the stuff here is things that we found at Red Hat Summit that we wanted to fix. A lot of them are large redesigns. I'm just going to go through from top to bottom. I have context on a lot of these, so it might just be a conversation with myself for a lot of these issues. But we'll see if anyone else wants to chime in. So starting with this one, this is mine. I'll have more of a model engine. So there's two parts of this. There's an open dev doc, and there is a draft PR. I think the draft PR, Nathan linked to this, and he linked to the dev doc. Wonderful. Thank you, Nathan. What this is really just an organization of commands, right? So like iLab has like the thing that Mark was showing, for example, like, I don't know, verify and sign. Like if I were to look at that, not knowing anything about anything, iLab verify is a very vague name. And I'm sure you can just, look at the doc string, whatever. That would solve it in a lot of circumstances. But I kind of thought that we should group these under like common resources that iLab messes with. So like a lot of things have to do with models, a lot of things have to do with data, generating data and stuff like that, modifying your config and modifying taxonomy stuff. So I've been working on this for a little while. The dev doc should almost be merged, I think, probably today. And then the draft PR can then be actually revamped and reviewed by the maintainers in the community. So this one it's looking good. I know we only have 7 days and it's kind of a big thing, but honestly, the PR is kind of ready. It just can't be merged until the dev doc is merged. Cool. Any comments on that one? I know it's kind of a big one. I kind of just skimmed over it, but we have a lot to get through. Yes, go ahead.
Given the timeline here, is there like a point where we need to cut off the conversation and start on implementation?
I think it needs to be today. I've been talking to people about that because I know Red Hatters have off tomorrow. I think time boxing it
and Monday too.
And Monday, and then if we come back and it's the 26th, that's not good. So I think the dev doc definitely needs to be merged today. And I think there's relative consensus. I have a lot of reviews, but a lot of them are just comments and looks good, change this, not blocking. So, I mean, I just actually pushed a commit right before this meeting to the dev doc that I think addresses a lot of the outstanding stuff. And I'm going to talk to people like Russell today to try to get a secondary review because I see that you already, approval, because you already approved it, Nathan, which I appreciate.
Indeed, I did.
So time boxing it to today is what I would prefer to answer that question.
Cool. Sounds good.
Yeah, if there's any way that you can, I think you already have some of the code written, it's all one big thing, but if there's any way you can break it down and you want to split it up, just since we're on such a tight deadline, we're going to be once Thursday comes up, I'm sure any of the maintainers will be able to help with that.
I actually think that would be an arbitrary slowdown just because I already have the PR. It's basically done. When I say it's basically done, I mean it's done because it's kind of simple. It just took me a while to figure out how to wrangle Click in the right way to get it to do this because Click, whole other conversation, but I think Click is the wrong CLI tool for us to be using because it doesn't let you really do large scale stuff like this. It's meant for more simple CLIs, it seems. But I got that working and that was the big hurdle. So now it's just reviews are what's needed, honestly. But if that changes, then yeah, I'll split it up totally.
Yeah, even getting that out as soon as possible would be helpful too.
Yep.
We can all focus our attention on that.
Yep, I agree. So, if someone wants to go and approve the dev doc, that would simplify my life a lot. I think it's actually blocked on, I think Russell requested changes, so I think his approval is necessary for it to merge. But other than that, if anyone wants to give it a look and approve it, that would be appreciated. But yeah, that's that one, unless anyone has any other comments.
There's just one question. Is the goal to have this by the end of next week? The design and the code?
Yep.
Okay. I'm just wondering if it's not a bit premature.
Well, this is actually
merge everything right away, because I mean, I see your PR is a draft. I assume that most of it works, but it feels like just within a few days we're gonna merge everything and then have it branched out so that it gets into stable. I'm wondering if we want to have it like resting for a few weeks and then release it officially.
So this has actually been kicking around for like 2 months. So I'd really prefer for it to not get pushed. I understand like the hesitancy, honestly. It totally makes sense, but it really is just like a shuffle of where everything is. So it's not functionally changing anything. It's just changing like how you call the commands. That's another enhancement that I want to write that like adds a new set of commands under these new groups, like model top, that. Yeah. So I actually split out the new commands because I knew that would be way too much to add to one
Also,
PR.
Also, I believe the plan, and correct me if I'm wrong, Charlie, is that the new commands will be introduced, but the old commands will still be supported. We'll have backwards compatibility. We won't be deprecating those.
So that is
like a wholesale replacement and more of a like addition, and then later we can pull out the old commands.
Another thing Click doesn't do is aliasing properly. Like if the way that I'm doing it, where if I want to do iLab model train, but I also want it to be called by iLab train, Click has, from what I've seen, absolutely no way of doing that. So if I were to alias, then it would be like a jerry-rigged alias, honestly. I would have to basically add the commands to twice, once to the iLab group and once to the like model group, for example, which I think would be kind of gross.
Kai did aliasing for a couple of commands previously.
Oh yeah,
So I would take a look at what he wrote and see if that scheme works for you. I'm not intimately familiar with the code, but he deprecated. There's precedent for this, so that might be something that could be helpful to you.
I think it's only useful for like the single level, right? So like you can alias in the same group, but you can't alias between groups, if that makes sense. So like I'll figure it out. I'll try to do something if that's a real blocker. But yeah,
we can always push this too, because 530 is last milestone, right? It's 0.16, so we're still pre-1.0. So we can maybe, why don't we sort of check in meeting next week and see where we're at, and maybe do a bit of a go on doing that.
Yeah. The other thing,
we can definitely prioritize it, try real hard to get it in, but we can't say, oh, it's 5:30, it's the deadline, so it has to be merged. That it doesn't work that way.
No,
Agree.
But I understand we're definitely trying to put pressure to, priority to get.
When everyone sees the actual PR, it's really not that. It's actually like organizing files with different ways of adding things to the group. It's really not like anything, that's like controversial. I think the design itself is controversial, but once the design is merged, the actual code of doing that is pretty simple. So I think as long as we can get the dev doc, I'm honestly more worried about getting the dev doc merged than I am the design. Because once the dev doc's set in stone, it's kind of like there's only one way to do it really with Click. There's no like usually on stuff like this, it's like, oh, what if we did this? But Click is very temperamental to the point where if we don't do it the way that I have laid out in the PR, I don't think Click allows you to do it any other way. Which is a problem with Click, not with the structure, honestly, in my opinion. But we'll take it day by day and see what we can get. But I think the first thing in order of operations here is to merge the dev doc, which I would greatly appreciate if that could happen today. But yeah, I think there's a hand up. I can't see. I could go back, but it'd be a mirror.
I was just gonna say, to your point, this is not a short-term thing, but maybe at some point somebody goes off and starts researching into alternatives for Click, so that maybe down the road we can switch at some point if it makes sense. I'm not super familiar with Python or the CLI space within Python specifically, but it's not unlikely that there are other tools that do this that may be better suited to the long-term design we have, and it's probably worth at least spending some time looking into whether we can switch to something that would be saving us a lot of long-term pain. And just a point I wanted to raise up, not a short-term thing.
Yep, I agree. Cool.
Yeah, I think it's on the same topic as well about the click. I mean, you seem to have a lot of concern regarding click. I think you mentioned it into a design doc, and then you mentioned it again a few times regarding the groups, the subcommons, the aliases. I'm just wondering that if it would be worth, and I know it has been like laying around for a few months already, but if you're convinced that maybe ArcParse or something else is better suited for what we do, then shouldn't we try to run like an investigation first, get this one in, and then we base your work on top of it? I know it's a lot to ask, but I feel like, I mean, at least the way you expressed it is that you keep on workarounding click to get it what you are targeting to do. It's somehow it feels a little bit wrong, you know? So, and I'm just afraid that others will also like struggle implementing new things, and we'll have to always like go back to, oh, this is how it's done here. And then it's like, you know, kind of forcing it, like, you know, to do something it was not designed for.
So
maybe in the short run, we work with what Charlie's got now, and someone in parallel can investigate other parser or other arg parsers in Python. And
yeah,
in the long run, that's going to cost a lot. If we stick with click and add a bunch of new content, and then we decide to refactor everything to use argparse, then that's going to be a nightmare. Because what you're adding right now is pretty substantial, and what you're planning on adding is even bigger. So that's where the concern is, I guess.
I think what you're suggesting though would like halt CLI development, right? Like Mark then couldn't merge the two commands if the thought train that we're on is like we shouldn't merge anything that changes the CLI until we figure out which parser we want to use, then it basically halts CLI development. And honestly, like if I'm being completely candid, like this design train is pretty, it's something of this variety will have to merge for reasons that are outside of the upstream community, honestly. But I totally agree that we should look into argparse, but if I do this right, which I hope I do, then it should be seamless to the user, right? Like if they go upgrade to the version that we introduce argparse or something, the command structure.
I think the way forward here is for Charlie to continue doing what he's doing, but we can open an issue in CLI repo that's like investigate whether or not to replace click. Because I think, you know, I think it's worth having an issue where we can centralize the conversation and people can. We have tags for this. We have like question, research, etc. labels. We can throw on an issue like this. It's something that I think I agree with Sebastian, and like the sooner the better. Like that we sort of settle on something, and click definitely seems like it has a lot of drawbacks. But I don't think either of these things that Charlie or Sebastian you're saying precludes the other. I think we can have both. Charlie can continue to sort of CLI design work, and then like to Sebastian's point, like I very much agree with like we should have an issue and look into, because as long as we're pre 1.0, we can still make changes like this. You know, like replacing click with argparse would obviously be like, it's an example, would be like, you know, a big effort, but also like, you know, to Sebastian's point, like the longer we wait, the bigger an effort it would be. So I would like to see an issue created around this. You know, anyone from the community can chime in. You know, people that maybe have other ideas outside of click or argparse, and then as that issue sort of reaches maturity, then we can more seriously talk about doing a full replacement.
Yeah, and I just want to clarify, I'm totally for this because as people in the Boston office know, I express my disdain for click like every day. It really just like bogs me down in a lot of these scenarios. So like I totally agree we should have an issue to like investigate alternatives, because I come from Golang and like Cobra, and Cobra is like the best thing ever compared to click. And it's just weird that they don't have a way. Like I know they have multi-command and stuff like that, but there really isn't a native way that they explicitly say in their docs that's like, here's how you group commands. You say have groups within groups, because I don't know about anyone else, but I feel like it's pretty common structure to have like parent and child commands other than the top level, and click doesn't really have it in their docs that they support that. And I got it working, and I think it's totally legit the way I did it, but it just concerns me that it's not in their like mental model for what Click should be used for, because it, you know, down the road they might just deprecate the thing that I ended up using and be like, oh, you were using it to do that? Well, we don't support that, which would be a huge problem for us. So I just want to make sure that we get away from it eventually if we deem that it's a larger problem than I think it's currently made out to be currently. Cool. I think I honestly, if there's any hands up, please just feel free to shout out, because I'm not looking at the screen right now.
I'll shout out a couple things. I was about to raise my hand. So yeah, there is the way we talk about Click, there is this concern that we might look at the code and say we shouldn't have done this way. But that's something hopefully you're going to solve, and we'll look at it and we'll say, okay, we can swallow this. It works. The other concern talks about we should have an API. And is this whole redesign of the CLI today going to soon be in conflict with yet another redesign? And I'm not sure where that's at.
I honestly think that in terms of an API and structure, what InstructLab is going to shell out to is a lot of internal Red Hat stuff that I don't think we should be waiting on, just because I think it changes on like a daily basis.
I think we're in agreement on that, but if anyone knows more, that would potentially suggest us pumping the brakes a little.
I know. I know that there's InstructLab backend code that, you know, InstructLab CLI is eventually going to plug into, but I don't think it's a for sure bet that that's going to be a REST API. So I think that this makes sense to merge this. And I, for one, I'm working on things behind the scenes that plug into this new design, but take like new stuff into account. So like I'm making this design with things that are coming down the pipe in mind.
It sounds very solvable anyway. It just might in the future be regrettable. We'll find out.
Yeah. Isn't that every development decision?
It is always.
Yeah.
Right,
Go ahead.
From JD, but then after that, we probably have to wrap up.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, yeah, right. I was just gonna say, I think, yeah, the API stuff, I think it's the right direction to go in. But from what I've seen and my understanding of both aspects is that they shouldn't be orthogonal to each other, because the commands are more around what we want to do versus the API is more like how we do it. So it's like a pluggable thing that we can switch out. So I think it should be doable to introduce any API stuff. If we need flags, maybe we could do it, but I don't see that it would change the way the commands are structured, because at the end of the day, we still need to do generate, we still need to do train and all these things. So if anything, hopefully the way we're designing it, I'm not seeing an issue where we can make it extensible to an API that may come along in the future. So if that provides any context. But yeah, that's a valid point.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's valid. And I, for one, would also be concerned about that. I think I've been kicking this thing around for a while, so in my head, it's like, oh yeah, of course we're doing this redesign. But I totally get the external concerns and stuff like that, because it is a pretty big change. I think it'll end up being for the better. I think, like, you know, with most big redesigns, right at the beginning, people might be like, oh, this is a little bumpy because they're not used to it. But I think it'll prove to be better. Like, I think Mark's commands of like validate and sign are like the two good examples of things that would fit better into this new design, because it's clear what they fall under and stuff like that. But yeah, I appreciate the lively conversation. I didn't think this would be the only thing we got to on the milestone, but I'm glad there's a lot of, you know, questions and stuff around it.
Go ahead and cut the recording.
Yeah, I'll stop the recording. Bye, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks all.